This is the 6th virtual presentation by Margot Lindgren and Dr. Robin Morrow for IBBY Australia. Our topic for this session is a timely one. In Australia just now, many people are trying to denigrate immigrants. This is in a country where most of us are immigrants or the descendants of immigrants, many of whom were refugees. Inspired by the founder of IBBY, Jella Lepman, we claim that good books build bridges of understanding. So today, we are recommending some excellent picture books which focus on the refugee experience. Here is the UNHCR definition. And you can see listed here the top 5 countries, but of course there are many others. Picture books help children think about these questions. What is a refugee? Why do people leave their homes, families, or countries to become refugees? What dangers do they encounter? How does it feel to be a refugee in a new country? How can we help refugees and immigrants to feel at home in Australia or in another new homeland? When you examine the books from our collection today, you might consider these 5 questions. This is a simple introductory book which uses headings such as reasons people need to leave their home, the way some countries do not welcome them, and that all refugees just want a normal life. The main theme of this book resonates. A refugee is a person just like you and me. The uncluttered, cartoon-like art style suits this expository text. Included are stories of refugee children, including famous names such as Albert Einstein. This is an excellent book to use as a discussion starter with students and readers. Jella Lepman used the phrase, books build bridges. They can also be mirrors and windows. Over the next slides, we will share some of our picture book discoveries, beginning with books for your younger children. In the book Welcome, a polar bear and 2 friends are stranded when a piece of their ice home breaks away and floats off into the ocean. As the trio travel, their ice platform shrinks. The water is getting warmer. Luckily, they bump into an island. Unluckily, the cows who live on this island refuse to accommodate the trio. They float on. Luckily, they bump into another island. Unluckily, the solo panda who lives there also refuses entry to the poor hapless polar bears. This pattern continues until finally, when the ice is almost gone, the bears reach an uninhabited island. Yes, this book has an environmental message, but there is also an important twist at the end when 3 monkeys arrive at the island, which is now inhabited by the polar bears. Storyboat is a Canadian picture book which is subtle and poetic, with a simple but metaphoric text. The illustrations are delicate, and apricot colours light up the objects that provide hope, such as the cup and a blanket, songs and flowers. Here is a focal word in this text. The reader is given a child's eye view of a seemingly endless journey, transformed by imagination. This is a book to explore over several readings. Here are 2 books that use items of clothing as a way to recount a story from the past. Grandma has oodles and oodles of shoes, walk to the park shoes, dance in the dark shoes, fun shoes and sun shoes, out and about shoes, splash in the rain shoes, fancy shoes, plain shoes. But her favourite shoes are her worn and torn shoes, from a time long ago and a land far away. Grandma has kept her old shoes, the ones she wore as a small child back in her village in Vietnam. She wore them when the family were forced to flee, with no luggage, with just shoes on her feet. They became escaping shoes as the family embarked on a long and very dangerous boat journey. The repeated text from the opening pages gives the story a sense of completion, using the shoes as a vehicle to tell the story of fear and flight. The author and illustrator have introduced the story of refugees in a sensitive and age-appropriate way. The second book you can see here encourages the reader to ponder the passing of time. When we first meet Salim, he has just been born. He hears the boom, boom, boom of his mother's heart, but there's also the boom, boom, boom all around. We know this is a dangerous place. When we read that the mother and child need to begin their journey to a safer place today. Salim is folded into her beautiful red shawl, and over the course of the book, he travels far and grows from a new baby into a young boy. The shawl is a baby blanket, a cover to keep him out of the sun and the wind, a carry scarf for the baby, a rug to put on the dry earth to sit on, a blanket to keep mother and child warm, a tent to shelter under, and finally, a template for more scarves to sew and sell. These next two books are set in a refugee camp, and both have central themes of friendship and hope. Beginning with Lubna and Pebble, please enter this book slowly. There are waves on the first page. They are there for a reason. We see a young girl with a large pebble, which has a texture-drawn smile. The next page shows an overcrowded and rusty boat with Arabic writing on the hull, navigating the wild ocean. Turn again, and the page is filled with a very close view of Lubna, holding her pebble, her best friend. Where is this child? What has happened to her family? She has only her father in this place, no cuddly toy or a home with walls. Lubna is in a refugee camp. Life is confusing and very hard. It is so cold in the winter in this camp. Her dad finds a box and a tea towel, and Lubna wraps Pebble to keep him warm. Then one day another child arrives. His name is Amir. Now Lubna has another friend. But then her father tells her they are leaving the camp. The final scenes in this book will make you smile. Amira, the second book, does not talk about where she lives or why, but the background images of corrugated iron and dirt and the fact she has no shoes speak volumes about her situation and the situation of her family. This is reinforced when we see the mattress on the floor of their new home and the way the family's possessions are in cloth bundles and recycled boxes. There is a strong emotional component to this story. A book with a similar setting and plot for an older group is 4 Feet, 2 Sounds. These 3 books are about the challenges of making a life and friends in a new country. In My 2 Blankets, our narrator is a happy child, playing at cartwheels in her home village. Then with her auntie she has to come to a new country to be safe. But everything here is strange, especially the language. So Cartwheel, as she is now called, retreats to her blanket at home. Freya Blackwood uses visual symbols to depict the bleakness of the unfamiliar and jagged words she hears. Then a child in the park befriends Cartwheel and helps her to make a new blanket with her now familiar new language. In this Canadian picture book, Mustafa's new country is also strange, and his dreams are filled with memories of smoke, fire, and loud noises. When he wakes, he is distressed in the middle of the night, so his mother shows him the moon and the stars. Is that the same moon as in our country? Asks Mustafa. Yes, answers his mother, the very same moon. His old country was grey and dry. In this new place, Mustafa sees colourful birds, small bushy-tailed animals, and lots of green trees. In the park, Mustafa sees a girl with a cat tied to a ribbon. This seems very strange to Mustafa, and he runs home when the girl says some words, because he doesn't understand. Mustafa uses a stick to draw scenes from his former life, his house, clouds of smoke and fire, broken trees. The girl with the cat comes past. She points to the drawings and says something, but again Mustafa runs away. The girl picks up another stick. She draws over his pictures, images of flowers, butterflies, stars, and her cat. When she finishes, the smoke and fire have disappeared. Over time, Mustafa watches the park itself change with the seasons. And then one day he hears some music from his old country. The girl then leads him to the swings, and together they almost reach the treetops. Together they almost touch the clouds. The girl points to herself and says, Maria. It sounds like music, happy music. Mustafa doesn't feel invisible anymore. A Home for Grace comes from the UK. Jess and her mum see a lady sitting outside a shop. Jess notices the lady has a sleeping bag, a cup, a glass bottle, a big spoon, a plastic picnic plate, and an old cushion. She also has a ginger cat. At first, Jess is too shy to talk to the lady, but Mum discovers her name is Grace. Grace gradually shares the contents of her special tin of treasures, and through these precious objects, Jess and her mum learn a little of her story. Grace is a refugee. She and her twin sister were very young when their mother was forced to flee. In the refugee camp, the children learned how to fold paper butterflies. This is just one of the treasures. Each tiny treasure is part of Grace's story. A photo of a woman and a man with 2 children, 3 origami butterflies, 2 tiny cloth dolls, 2 woven bracelets, a pebble, and a pouch of seeds. Mustafa, in the book from the previous slide, expressed his confusion and sadness through a drawing. The Colour of Home, published in 2002, has a similar scene. Hassan from Somalia has reached a grey, colourless country, England. On his first day at school, he paints his home in Somalia in bright colours, but then he blackens it and shows the scene of his uncle being shot by invading soldiers. The next day, his teacher introduces him to an interpreter, and this helps his teacher understand the reality of his painting. Hassan is now able to complete a new painting, and at home his mother displays it, and this adds welcome colour in their new surroundings. This book honestly portrays the difficulties of abandoning home, including leaving a precious pet cat, surviving a refugee camp, and adapting to a new country and language. The final pages are filled with optimism. In Noah's new home, it is the sound of fireworks that are terrifying for young Noah. He recalls his memories, good and bad, of his homeland, including the terrible day a bomb landed and killed his baba. The air shook. The window shook. Noah shook. Noah, my darling, it's just fireworks. But fireworks made Noah remember when the sky exploded outside his old home. Luckily, Noah has good friends and neighbours who offer other activities such as drawing, music, and delicious food, and each of these allow Noah to remember the good times. These are 3 books about making the dangerous journey to a new land. It is especially interesting to think about how much is resolved at the end of each one. This book has an extraordinary origin. The Canadian writer saw artwork by Nazir Ali Badia, who in war-torn Syria makes artwork from stones and then photographs them. With difficulty, she made contact with him, and together they produced this book with text in both English and Arabic. It is the story of one family who, quoting from the story, joined a river of people in search of peace, a place where bombs did not fall. One of the many special features of this book is the way the artist has made inanimate stones express a range of emotions. These 2 books work well when shared alongside the previous title, Stepping Stones. In My Name Is Not Refugee, a child's mother tells her child they will have to leave their town. It is not safe for them any longer. She explains what will happen. The child can pack his own bag, but he has to remember that he must only take what he can carry. He'll be called refugee, but he has to remember that refugee is not his name. As is always the way with the best picture books, the words tell one story, and the pictures show the reality of what this mother and child will have to go through just to get somewhere where they are safe. The second book here is a photo essay by Rosemary McCarney, Canada's ambassador to the United Nations. We see the faces of refugee children from around the world. The photographs were taken by the UNHCR from Croatia, Hungary, Rwanda, Lebanon, Iraq, Jordan, Slovenia, Greece, South Sudan, Kenya, Cameroon, and Myanmar. They are not grim photos, but lead to discussion of the serious and confronting question of the title. Shelter is so much more than a simple story of weary travellers seeking food or of strangers needing shelter from the storm. The forest animals know a storm is coming. They gather supplies and settle down in their snug homes. Then Little Fox asks a prophetic question. What if others are still outside? There are others outside. 2 figures emerge through the fog. They offer to exchange some tea for a moment by a warm fire. They offer to exchange the tea for a few cookies for dipping. They offer their tea again for some light on this dark night. Every plea is rejected. So the pair of bears, large and small, set off to make their own shelter, an ice cave. They warm themselves by dancing in the snow. Meanwhile, the storm has intensified, and the foxes find their den is collapsing. Now they need shelter, warmth, and food. As the roles are reversed, you will hold your breath. How will the strangers react? Will the strangers offer shelter and their warm tea, or will they be as hostile as the forest animals have been just a few hours ago? This is an allegorical story from Canada you can share with all grades. The suitcase begins with the words, "A strange animal arrived one day looking dusty, tired, sad and frightened. He was pulling a big suitcase. He meets a fox, rabbit and bird. The group are curious and ask about the contents of the suitcase. The list of contents sounds utterly impossible. A teacup, a table, a chair, a kitchen, and even a wooden cabin. The strange animal is exhausted and he falls asleep. The fox decides they should open the suitcase so they can discover the truth." In this book, a big sister tells her younger sibling they are playing a game. The pair and all their friends don masks and set off, careful to avoid the monsters and knowing it is vital that they are not caught. She promised the masks would hide us, make us fast, make us brave. It's like tag. If the monsters catch you, you're out. We win the game when we cross the line. Everyone was racing to see who could get there faster. So where are these kids going? And why? And who are the monsters? We thought hard of what we might win: a home, a really big school, a spotty dog, a pair of red shiny shoes. The word home is your first hint something bigger and way more serious than a children's game is going on here. The illustrations show the children and others running, and then they're on a bus, a raft, and train. Not riding in the train, they are riding on the roof. This is another hint about the reality of this game. These children are trying to cross the border from Mexico to the US, but will they be safe in the new country? This is a book that needs careful reading, rereading, and deep thought. The narrative in this book is shared from two perspectives, as the title implies: then and now. Knock, knock, knock. We hide under the table. Knock, knock, knock. We open the door to welcome our guests. These are two highly contrasting responses to the knock. The illustrator uses two colour palettes. Sepia tones are used to illustrate the past and capture the history of where the children have come from. The emotions etched on the children's faces include fear, courage, desperation, sadness, despair, hunger and pain. In contrast, shades of blue represent now. In their new home, the children celebrate their culture, honour their ancestors, take comfort in sharing a meal, and experience a sense of belonging and freedom. The end papers in this next book depict a patchwork. In the opening one, they are ragged and cobbled together, but the closing one is tidier and looks as though the stitches will hold. The text in this book is aimed at high school children. It is a short, reversible poem. The artwork is at first dark and threatening, using roughly applied paint, showing a haggard-faced father and son making their way with difficulty past people who seem to be constructing a wall to exclude them. Halfway through, there is a turning point, though, and the illustrations reflect the optimism of the words, "These are people, just like us." This is a book that speaks to the residents of the country the group of refugees have just entered. Tonight is the night. The family has to flee. They've been tipped off that the authorities are after their blood. As it begins, this tale seems a familiar one, the biblical story depicted in many Renaissance paintings, the flight into Egypt. A man, woman and child with their donkey set out on a journey. But Wheatley's spare text and Armand Grieder's spreads of vast and dangerous Middle Eastern deserts bring this centuries-old tale into modern times. The turning point is the page where the night's bombardment is depicted and named. The family show faith and endurance, eventually reaching a camp. The book ends with the child telling his mother, "One day we will reach our new home." These are two longer books to share with an older primary or high school group. Escape uses synonyms for the word escape, such as cling, dart, defy, disguise, fly, raft, sprint, stow away, swim, tunnel. The experiences that are described in this book are historical, coming from 1745 right up to 2015. Migrations contains 50 postcards that were part of an exhibition held in 2017. You'll be familiar with some of the contributors, such as Sean Tan from Australia, Isel from Buenos Aires, Marie-Louise Gay from Canada, Pete Grobler from South Africa, Mies van Hout from the Netherlands, Roger Mello from Brazil, Jackie Morris from Wales, and Yuval Zoma from the UK. You will be familiar too with this book, The Arrival by Sean Tan, which was published 20 years ago and continues to be a very important text for older students. Finally, these books are for mature readers and are very thought-provoking. The Immigrant Family in My Strange Shrinking Family may or may not be refugees, but this is another book that rewards close study. Thank you. We hope you have found this presentation useful.